Welcome here to the FWA review, where I'm joined by our chairman Paddy Barclay, who is also the biographer of Sir Matt Busby, the definitive biography. It'll be very interesting to talk about the situation with Mourinho at the moment at Old Trafford. We'll also be looking ahead to discuss the Women's Footballer of the Year award, which we announced in the past fortnight. Paddy, first of all, though, we're going to start with Jose Mourinho.
Yeah.
Was it a meltdown or was it media manipulation, first of all? That, do we say soliloquy?
Yeah, that's very good. I've heard it called a few things, but and I've read the ridiculing of it. Probably the most dramatic one was by Oliver Holt in the Mail on Sunday. No, I think it was. I don't think it was media management. No, I think it was a desperate attempt, really, to say, if it's almost rolling the clock back to, I'm not lucky to be here, I'm not out of a bottle, I'm a special one. Even, all those years ago, this was a sort of less elegant, updated, and slightly more desperate version of it. It was a 12-minute, it was described as a rant. I think the soliloquy is probably closer. It's certainly the word he'd prefer. But it was basically all about him instead of being about Manchester United. And there's a huge difference there vis-a-vis Sir Alex Ferguson, who, although a fiercely ego-driven man, never let you know it. When he was attacking a referee or putting pressure on everybody, it was always, everybody assumed it was for Manchester United. Mourinho can't. These days, he can't bring off that trick. It's all about him. And that plays so badly in a dressing room. I bet you want to talk about the Manchester United dressing room, don't you? Well,
he talked about, didn't he, if you're in front of a wall, then break down and make a door. But he's been breaking down his players, hasn't he? A few, exclusive in the Sun by Neil Ashton, about the bust-up with Shaw.
Well,
is this so
different?
Is this so different, though, that we used to see from Sir Alex Ferguson and his fallout to Stam and Keane?
Yes, crucially different, because basically, if Sir Alex Ferguson felt about a player the way Jose clearly does about Luke Shaw, he won't be at Manchester United. He'd be somewhere else. It might be on loan. It won't be as big as Manchester United. And it would look as if his career was going in only one direction. Why? Fill your dressing room, not only with somebody you don't fancy, but somebody who will have friends. By all accounts, he's a nice lad, Luke Shaw. So he'll have friends in that dressing room. And Jose's antagonising them. Now, all of this, have a Shaw bust-up, if you like, but have it in private, the way Alex Ferguson did. And the way, frankly, 99% of managers always have.
Jeremy Wilson as well.
Well, this actually, leads on very, very well to that. Jeremy Wilson, as always, thought-provoking, interesting, and he says Mourinho's not doing an especially bad job. Crucial. Look at the league table. They're not in danger of relegation. He's not doing a bad job. He's only doing a bad job in Mancunian terms, in the great scheme of Mancunian football. He is not doing an especially bad job. He's not doing a great job either. And my own theory, says Jeremy Wilson in the Telegraph, is that what really grates is that he no longer carries the mystique among players, fans, and even journalists that once came with a pretty much universal acceptance that, yes, he was the best in the world. He now has to tell us that. And once you're having to say, look at me, I'm really quite good, it's not a good posture.
David McDonald, interesting article here. The view from Matic, who was obviously a big leader under Mourinho. It's very difficult to work with Mourinho because he just wants more and more, better and better. I really like it, but all players have to be ready for it. And there's a lot about the mentality of which players will really thrive under Mourinho. And we've seen, of course, some great players that haven't been able to.
Well, Matic, of course, is in a really embarrassing situation now, because they'll be referring to Mourinho as your dad. That'll be what they'll be calling him, because he singled him out as the only player who looked and had the heart of a Manchester United player, McTominay as well, even when he wasn't playing well, that he'd be standing up and he'd be playing for Manchester United. Matic, though this is a really well-timed disc, Dave McDonnell has
a really well-timed interview about working with Mourinho, which of course he has done at 2 clubs. It's very difficult to work with him because he just wants more and more, better and better. Well, that's fine. That's okay. That's what managers do. But all players have to be ready for it. So I don't know when the interview was done. I mean, when would you guess? It must have been before.
Nemanja Matic.
Yes.
Yes, I imagine so.
Well,
yes, before
yes.
the weekend. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, very
Not,
well
not,
timed.
not entirely sure.
That's what you expect from a good journalist.
Yes.
Which he is.
Yes.
Messi.
Yes, Messi.
The new Messi.
Yes, the new Messi.
The bearded Messi.
Yeah, of course. The salivating performance of Salah, Messi of the Premier League.
Yeah. Obviously, Mo Salah is quite interesting. We're just talking about Mourinho, the Football Writers Association Footballer of the Year award. The front runners would be Mo Salah and Kevin De Bruyne. And what have they got in common? Rejected by Mourinho's Chelsea. But anyway, Mo Salah, as you rightly say, we were salivating about that 4-goal performance against Watford. It was sensational. Even then, it still hits you between the eyes when somebody's compared with the great Lionel Messi. But that performance certainly was one of which Messi would have been rightly proud. And Salah's just having a sensational season. But there may be problems down the line. You were going to mention that there was a story in one of the papers.
Chris Bascom writing in the Daily Telegraph comparing Messi and Salah, and the stats do look impressive. Messi's 43 games, 41 goals, Salah 35 games, 36 goals, 16 assists by Messi, 10 by Salah. They're not far apart, are they?
That's extraordinary, isn't it?
And that's the Premier League, which, although we've seen in the Champions League action in the last week, maybe there's not such a disparity down the league. But
But yes, it is. That's good stuff, because that's what you want to read after a claim like that. You want to read the evidence. Bascom's done it, and it is incredibly impressive because you're measuring Salah against the best in the world, one of the best the world has ever seen. I think it's also a tribute, though, to the style of football that Liverpool play. For an attacking player, it must be an absolute joy to play in a team that, if they've got a fault, and they have actually, it's that the attack may be a little bit too recklessly at times, and it is great. Also, there's an interesting one in I don't know if it was in Chris Bascom's piece, but in which Jurgen Klopp says, when I bought him, I wanted him, but I didn't know he was a striker. It is an absolute fairy tale season, and if he carries on like this, well, you wonder whether the Barcelona, the Real Madrids will, maybe drop the idea of Eden Hazard and go for Mo Salah instead.
Let's hope Liverpool can keep hold of him, because what a shame that Chelsea and what a shame that Manchester City and Liverpool have been drawn together in the Champions League.
Well, it is in a way, although I'm looking forward to the game.
The Battle of Britain,
it's just a fantastic game of football. Liverpool are the only team that have really given Man City a semi-battering this season. It was almost a battering, and so I mean, in a way, whenever they play, I want to see those matches. It's terrific.
From one end of the table to another, and the situation of West Ham. Andy Dunn saying history, heritage, and heart. That's the Hammers of old, but not today. You've got to praise Miguel Delaney, who actually flagged up a week before that violence that there was great disharmony between the supporters groups, that they had to call off a march because there were concerns and threats of violence. I mean, this is getting ugly, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, Delaney did very well in, as you say, flagging that up. Andy Dunn commenting on it and drawing a comparison between the West Ham that was universally loved and the one that maybe a year ago or less was feared because it appeared to have outgrown Upton Park, got a 54 going on 60 capacity, stadium capable of expanding to 60 and therefore competing on level terms with Arsenal and Tottenham, to name but two. Well, that plan didn't go too well. And now there's fury and loathing, and so much so that that it's been actually well documented that the fans
argue about each other about what's wrong. All they know is that there's something terribly wrong.
Yeah, fans that have protested on the pitch, then coming on and fighting with the fans that were...
Fans that, people of my generation, and maybe even yours to an extent, were brought up believing was a family.
Yeah.
An East London family. You wouldn't want to be part of that family now, would you?
Not easy though, getting fans and moving them into a new ground. I was coming back with the Tottenham fans talking about their seats and their allocations in the new stadium, and none of them, all were very concerned about where they were going and moving their seats. It's never an easy transition, and I would say I've been there when they've had great performances, West Ham against Tottenham, and it's been jumping there. So you feel if they got the results, they could make it.
Well, they'd have to get very, very good results. That dream, that scenario that I'm talking about would have to happen for that place to be jumping more than on the odd performance. I think West Ham have got problems, and I suspect that Tottenham's idea for the Olympic Stadium, which involved demolition, razing to the ground, might just have been the right one.
Yeah, if they built an athletics track next to it, which was the plan. I'm defending athletics there. We're going on to International Week. Looking forward to that. Alison Rudd's done a lovely piece on the President of Iceland, talking about her island nation, and of course the team that shocked everyone, including England, last summer.
That was
nice insight.
It's a great piece, and it talks particularly about the mixture of unpretentiousness of this country, which, as Alison and others have pointed out, is smaller than Croydon, the large lump of South London, and yet at the same time there is not a single. There are lots of coaches in Iceland. I mean, what happened in the European Championship and what may happen in the World Cup is not just some accident. It's not just a fairy tale, because there is no such thing as an unqualified coach in Iceland. I didn't know that. There's a lot of good detail in this piece, that if you're not getting instruction from a geography teacher, although they do a great job, don't get me wrong, or a parent, there's no such thing as unqualified coaching in Iceland. Maybe that's why they play so well.
Moving on to England, and Jonathan Northcross trying to get his mind around what we think will be the number one problem now. If we're looking to dilemmas. It seemed at the start of this season that we had a melee of quality goalkeepers. This is a big concern, and a lot of pressure on Joe Hart now to reward the loyalty and just step up.
Yeah, well, he's
that
been,
position.
for so many years we've sort of said, well, England don't have a goalkeeper problem because there's a short list of one.
Yeah.
He's made mistakes like every goalkeeper, but he's been good, he's been strong, he's been a sort of go-to figure, and you'll know about this, Carrie. I mean, he's a go-to figure after the match if you've lost.
Yeah.
Hart's got the heart to front up to us lot, and on behalf of the fans. But now, suddenly, it's almost an anachronism to see Joe being the illustration of a piece about England goalkeeping. It seems to be all about Butland and the other, the what's he called? Mark, the guy at Everton. What's he called?
Jordan Pickford.
It's all about Butland and Pickford, and that's the future.
So many discussions and debates for Gareth Southgate to get on with. Of course, Rashford, we saw those 2 goals last weekend, which really helps out in that situation. Jack Wilshere, a real opportunity to show faith there. And you have to wonder as well, Gareth Southgate really been put in the middle of the Russian Spygate crisis. He said he'll take his family there. There's no concern. But I have genuine concerns for our fans, because we already have fans in terrible situations still recovering from the Euros. Now what can we expect?
Well, I don't think it's you're quite right to be concerned. I think Southgate's family will probably be better protected than you or I might be. But having said that, it's still an example that he's trying to set, or perhaps. But it'll be. It's quite interesting. You mentioned Marcus Rashford. I think that the dramatic performance, his dramatic sort of resurgence after it appeared that he was being marginalised under the Mourinho regime, is really, really good for England. Because what is the worst thing that could happen to England going into this tournament? What's going to be the best thing about it? Harry Kane. What would be the worst thing?
Harry Kane gets a hamstring strain before the tournament. If you've got good backup, if you've got somebody who you can put in, and in that piece you just talked about, I think Southgate gave the impression that he thinks that Rashford has the potential to reach that same level as Harry Kane. So a very, very important player for England.
Some lovely articles written about Dele Alli as well, and his progression, what he had to go through as a kid to play football, not even having the money to pay for training, and it was only £1 and they let that go, and getting the boots of his senior players that were more senior to them, passing down their boots to him. So much criticism about his diving, but what a talent.
Yeah, what a talent. And you know, you're talking about those the challenges that he's overcome to become a very, very exciting player, a flawed performer without question. Not just, I mean, for me, some of the tackles are worse than dives. But I'd rather he dives in front of me than tackled me the way he does with some people. But having said that, I can remember when he was at Milton Keynes, his manager was Carl Robinson, used to talk very lovingly about him, not just about his talent, but about his personality and the fact that he wanted to learn. So, yeah, I think eventually he'll come through the other side, cut out the violence and the violent tackles and also the diving, and become, I think, potentially one of the best players in the world.
Is it good to have a player that's a bit cheeky in an international coming up to a World Cup stage though? Because I think quite often we want to be the purest England.
No, it isn't. No. Cheeky. I mean, that's it. That's very interesting, Carrie. The cheating foreigners, if it's foreigners doing it, but if it's us, we're just being a bit cheeky. No, I think what England need, you know, you talked earlier about Alison Rudd's piece on Iceland. They need to be more like Iceland and not run before they can walk. That's my opinion.
Talking of internationals and looking at the top talents on offer, we announced in the last fortnight the introduction of the top Women's Footballer of the Year award being announced at the Football Writers Association Footballer of the Year. You were very keen to push this forward as soon as possible. Why are you so passionate about it?
The whole committee of the FWA actually was totally unanimous about this. I've never known us carries on the committee, and have you ever known such unanimity? We really want to go forward on this, and we're very, very proud of the quality of people who are coming into the FA. 2 England internationals, Rachel Brown-Finnis and Alex Scott have come on board. They're joining us to pursue their careers in the media alongside us. So we've got 220 England caps there who will be among a large panel of about 20 odd people now who will pick it in the first year. And we hope that as the the women's game becomes more popular, that it will be something that the whole membership will be able to vote on next year, maybe the year after.
The instant social media reaction, I think there were 3 stages of that. One, why wasn't it earlier, which was great to hear because we hadn't had that feedback so much.
That's basically what 1 or 2 of us felt.
Yes.
And what 1 or 2 of the new members who've come in said, well, what's been keeping you? But and then what happened?
The next reaction was, what will all the football writers that cover the men's game know about women's football?
The answer to that is that's why for this first year, and maybe next year, I don't know, it will be all FWA members, but it's an expert panel of people who already work in the women's football media. Some of them well-known names like the 2 internationals I just mentioned. Some of them a journalist who has been a member of the FWA all his working life, Glenn Moore, who started off in the men's game and is now diversified into the women's game, but is a respected figure there. And Tony Layton, who's described by everybody as the godfather of the England of covering the England
women's game
the women's game, should I say, for longer than he would probably admit.
Yeah, he's a great guide for me as well when I started covering the women's
totally respected throughout the women's game.
Fantastic. And then the final one was the option that you kept on saying in committee meetings. You wanted to make sure it would happen, and you put this to vote.
Well, yeah.
And that is?
Yes, well, that was that we don't want it to be a sort of secondary award, although clearly you'd be only a fool would argue that the women's game has reached the level of the men's game or anything like it at the moment. But what we have fundamental on is that the main award is open to women as well as men. And you might laugh at that and say, well, where are we going to get there? When is a woman going to come along who's better than Kevin De Bruyne or Mo Salah? Well, I'm just saying, never rule anything out in football. And someday down the line, England might win the Women's World Cup. One player might score a double hat-trick in every game after beating the entire Brazilian and Nigerian defence and slotting it past the keeper. One might dominate football so much that she is our Footballer of the Year. Okay, you say that's fantasy. It might happen, and we want to be ready if and when it does. That's all.
Well, 20 years ago, I wasn't allowed to play football at school. It wasn't ladylike.
Yeah.
In 2005, Eurosport became the first international broadcaster to show the women's Euros the worldwide. So as we see the progression again and again, now we have girls that not only aspire to put on an England shirt and can see how well our girls are being supported now, but also they can go on and try and become the next footballer.
And it's also, if you love football, even though, yes, we earn a living following the glamorous side of it, but when all said and done, if you love football, you want everybody in the world to play it, even if they're not very good. And this is just a small, contribution towards that process.
And finally, to flag up that this is recorded Monday, but on Monday night we will be announcing the shortlist of the Coots Football Book of the Year, of which you're in the running for, Paddy. So you had to step down from the committee.
Yes, exactly. Mind you, I'll sack anybody who doesn't vote for my book about Matt Busby. Now that is a joke. It's really exciting. It's really exciting for us because we have other authors that you met, Guillaume Balaguer, for example, who's very well known. Ian Herbert, Martin Lipton. So we're quite proud that we've got a few Football Writers Association members among those in a long list of, I think it's about 12 books. So we'll keep an eye on that. And
you can watch all the updates from that and get an insight on the authors as well, and all the other updates from the FWA on our website, www.footballwriters.co.uk. Thank you, Paddy, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Gary.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.